I'm Bethany Dixon, and last year I studied abroad at the University of Leicester in Leicester, England. I studied media studies, focusing mainly on the coverage of politics and activism on the international level. One of the greatest things about studying abroad were just the opportunities I had. While I was in England, Queen Elizabeth was celebrating her Jubilee, and her first stop on the Jubilee tour was my city. So I actually was able to get out of classes and go to the city square and watch her and Kate Middleton come into town, and they drove through and they waved and I got to see the Queen. And that's just something you don't get to do every day. That's just an opportunity that fell into my lap and I wouldn't have gotten any other place. Something that students really should take into consideration when they study abroad is course selection and what university they pick. Make sure ahead of time that the university you want to study at has classes that can actually transfer back to Lemoyne or whatever college you go to in the United States. I was lucky and I went to one of the #1 communications and media studies schools in England. So all of my classes transferred back as communications electives. But there are a lot of students who, once they get to their school, end up finding that their classes aren't going to transfer as what they thought they were, or aren't going to transfer at all. And you don't want your study abroad experience to kind of leave that mark. You want it to just be an all-around good experience. So do your homework ahead of time and make sure all of these things are going to transfer. While I was traveling, I got to go to Rome and Paris and Dublin and Edinburgh, and I'd never been to these places. These are places I kind of only dreamed about seeing, and I got to see great works of art, and I went to see the Colosseum, and these are things that I only ever saw in textbooks or art books, and I actually was there and I could see them and be in the same room with them. And that's just, there's no replacement for that. If you're studying abroad and you plan on traveling, the biggest piece of advice I can give is book in advance, because prices go up and things get booked, and you don't want to be stressing at the last minute that all of your friends are going to Rome tomorrow and you don't have your ticket. Like, you really have to plan in advance. Spur of the moment travel doesn't really work when you're traveling in groups of people. And another thing is definitely make sure you do your homework on the country. I went to a lot of places where I didn't speak the language and I didn't even have like a dictionary or a book of like Italian to English. So I was kind of just winging it. So if you can make sure you have, some backup plan on how to communicate with people, that's probably a good idea.
I went to Australia, Bond University, which is on the Gold Coast, the East Coast, north of Sydney. Actually one of the fewer private universities over there, and had a great bit of fun. I went through a different program than one offered at Lemoyne, and not that that was a challenge, but you just had to like look, uncover like rocks and be like, all right, what, am I doing everything right? Like, is everything in order? So, I love the process though, because it just made me like that much more excited for when I was actually there. The process was pretty easy. Just filling out one form. I met with financial aid once, and everything was taken care of. Again, because I was going through a different program, I was like always calling and making sure they had received the form and everything was set. Another reason I picked the school, again, like I said, how I was being so picky about it, the school's actually on trimesters, and it's super international. So there are it's probably 60% Australian and then 40% international students. And the way the semesters worked out, it was January through April. So it's like shortened a bit, no breaks really. And because of that, the school's not on the same timeline as other schools in Australia, and our orientation group, although it was like a bigger overseeing program of all Australian study abroads, our orientation group kind of had like a private, like only 50 people.
Oh, cool.
Because we didn't have to house in the other students that would come like later in the month. So, yeah, that's where I met everyone. They also familiarized us with like the culture, and not that there's huge culture shocks over there, but it definitely like came into like just knowing the terminology for some random things, like what they even call breakfast, or call it brekkie, and just being used to like that, things that can throw you for a loop randomly. Like, I came here without wanting to do it, believe it or not, and I never really pursued it until sophomore year. I think it was when I had actually been on campus and talked to my RA, who went to the same school actually, just hearing her experiences, that it really enticed me to go. Now, for somebody that's a freshman or a sophomore, what I would probably tell them is like to travel with meaning. Like it comes like when you're studying abroad. Like, you can travel when you're older and do some touristy things and hang out in hotels, but you get to like live as a college student for these 4 years. Like, one of them should be at like a foreign country, like kind of to enhance your learning experience, I think, because the classroom stuff there, not that I'll forget it, but that's not the important stuff. It's like the fact that I was meeting so many great people, and they were all at the same like age, and they were all like very interested and like curious with a different culture, and at the same time, like, the Australians are so very hospitable that it just made the experience that much more enriching. So I think to have like the full learning experience, or if you really want that, then I would recommend studying abroad.